Hello friends, welcome to Tarun IAS. Today we will be discussing daily current affairs of 12th of December 2022. So in today's news, we are having Cactus, and in Economic Today, I have taken it from the Indian Express, and the next news of the day will be the Ajinomoto, the Americium, and the District as Export Hub Initiative. So let's start with the first news of the day. The Union Minister of Rural Development has convened a consultation meeting on cactus plantation and its economic use. So let's talk about the cactus. We've known the reason why cactus are in news these days, but let's know what cactus are. So you might have heard about some plants living in desert conditions, or they are known as xerophytic plants. Xerophytic means those who survive in desert conditions where there is a less water and high sunshine. So there is a huge rate of transpiration, right? Transpiration means it is the evaporation of the water from the leaves of the plant. So these cactus plants, they modify their body parts in order to survive in the desert conditions. For example, the stem, it becomes succulent. By succulent, I mean it gets filled with water. It's not as hard as we see in the other plants. Example, aloe vera. So you might have heard about aloe vera. Aloe vera is a cactus, and the stem of the plant is succulent. There is a lot of moisture and a lot of water content. So water has to be stored. So wherever the body parts, there is a space in the body part, the water gets stored there, so as to survive the desert condition or the xerophytic conditions. The other point is, because there would be high rate of transpiration under the high sunshine, thus the leaves are reduced. So if you look at the plant of the aloe vera, it looks something like this, and you see brown spots here in form of thorns. These are actually not thorn. This is the succulent stem, the stem which has modified itself in order to store water, and these are basically the leaves. They have reduced themselves so as to avoid transpiration, and at the same time it protects the plant and it provides a defensive mechanism against the herbivores. So that's how the plant looks like. So this is the leaf, this is one of the stem of aloe vera. The next point is the root. The desert plants, they have extensive root system so as to deep penetrate the ground in order to search for the water. Right, so these are some of the specific features of the cactus plants. Now let us look at the cactus. These are the xerophytic plants, as I have already described to you, and they grows relatively at a slower pace. If you go to the desert or in a marusthal conditions, you won't find trees very big. These are short trees. Mostly you are going to find the shrubs or probably the tall grass. For example, the savannas in Africa. So tall grass or shrubs are found. However, there would be no tall trees because the water that would be required to support the length of the plant, or in fact the height of the plant, would be too large, and because of the insufficiency or because of the deficiency of the water in the desert area, these cactus, they do not grow very large, and their growth is at a slower pace. They are unevenly distributed, and their concentration is found around the 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south of the equator. So if this is the earth, and if this is the equator at 0 degree, then 30 degree up to 30 degree and up to 30 degree north and south, they are found. All right. If we consider the subtropical climate of South Africa and South America, they houses the highest number of species and where they are densely populated. For example, if you see the Atacama Desert, the Atacama Desert, the Kalahari Desert in South Africa. So there, the cactus plant would be more. It uses 80% less water than the traditional crops because it has to store water so as to avoid the desiccation. All right. And it also produces high number of fruits, and these fruits are then made to use as jams and jellies, etc., because they have a high sugar content. See, basically wherever there is a deficiency, there is a high percentage, or you can say there is a high rate where the plant would be storing the substance, for example water, sugar, etc., and there would be minimal consumption of it by the plant. So thus these crops, they are of high value for the human being. If we consider the benefits of aloe vera as a therapeutic, as a medicinal plant, and even as a food and Mostly it is used in cosmetics, and it is used in therapies. It has medicinal properties. Then these plants, they are of highly beneficial when it comes to natural cure for the diseases. And they, of course, they have high heat tolerance, and they have a wide they're more adaptive globally. And as countries prepare to bear the extreme temperatures due to the climate change, then cactus could be the plant which can be explored for realizing the benefits of biofuel, food, fodder, biofertilizer, etc., etc., so as to extract the large benefits for the country. And this would also reduce the import of fuel, which has a higher import burden that directly impacts the fiscal plan of the country. And it would also generate the income for the farmers, and it will also contribute towards the employment. Now let us talk about the next news of the day. Sorry, this is not 10th, this is 12th of December. Unhealthy subsidies. I have taken it from the Indian Express. Now, what do we mean by unhealthy subsidies? See, subsidies basically are the kind of the benefits which are provided by the government to the vulnerable section of the society. Here, we are going to be particularly talking about the fertilizers. Now, what has happened? There are two ambitious schemes which the present government runs. The first one is the soil health card scheme, and the second one is the neem coated urea. These are the two schemes that the present government runs, and these schemes are basically to support the balanced use of the fertilizer. However, the annual consumption of the nitrogenous fertilizer, according to the report, has only increased in the last half decade from 30 to 35 million tons. And this year, it not only have the urea sales have not only gone up by 3.5 percentage during the April and October over the same period of the year 2021. In fact, it has grown even more, that is approximately 16.9 percentage for the DAP. Now, if we speak of the other fertilizers, that includes the nitrogenous containing fertilizers such as NPK fertilizers in different proportions, the use of it has fallen. So we are talking about the rise in the use of fertilizers, and we are talking about a decline in the use of the NPK fertilizers. Now, what the article says here, what the report says here, that instead of balanced use of the plant nutrients based on the soil's testing and the specific crop requirements, they are effectively applying just urea and DAP. And both high analysis fertilizers, they contain some approximately 46% of the nitrogen and phosphorus respectively. DAP is used to include phosphorus in the soil, and urea is used for the nitrogen. Now, what are the probable reasons that they have to do? They are doing so for some reasons. Basically, the government has fixed the maximum retail price of urea at 5,628 per ton, and the MRP of other fertilizers are technically decontrolled. Out companies have been told not to change more than 27,000 per ton for DAP. This in normally fixed MRPs are higher at 29 or 31 to rupees 34,000 per ton for NPKs. But at these prices, NPK complexes and muriate of phosphate respectively. But farmers have little incentive to buy at these prices. And why should they apply complexes such as 10, 26, 26, 0, 12, 32, 16, 0 and to 20, 20? These are basically the percentage in which these fertilizers have to be used in the soil. So technically, if we say MRPs of other fertilizers than urea have been decontrolled, right? The companies, they have been told not to change it more than 27,000. However, normally the fixed MRPs, they are higher than what the government has fixed. So when DAP is cheaper and it has 46% phosphorus as well as 18% of nitrogen, the fact that DAP does not contain potassium, sulfur or other macro and micronutrients wouldn't matter to a majority of farmers. Now what has happened, that there is a particular, you see, if I talk about in context of these two schemes, see, the soil health card basically talks about that how much of the percentage of a particular nutrient has to be applied to the soil. So in response to this proportion fixed policy, the a farmer has to buy different kind of fertilizers. However, they are not doing so because there is no incentive when they can directly apply DAP and urea. This is what the article is wants to say, and that's the reason why the title is unhealthy subsidies, right? So for them, the choice is primarily a function of price. The choice of the fertilizer is the function of price and not the function of suitability. So underpricing of urea, it's a historical phenomena because there are political reasons, of course, related with the price of the fertilizers, and DAP is a product of subsidy induced market distortion. So both these fertilizers, the distortion that has been induced by these fertilizers in the cropping pattern of India is because of the subsidies. It's because of the subsidies. Now, for which the blame lies with the government. The compulsion of electoral politics have clearly trumped concern over the soil nutrient imbalances. The effect of the current NPK ratio is 13:5:1 as against the ideal 4:1. So that means there is an excessive use of the fertilizers here. So maybe twice a year, and every farmer can have an e-wallet account into which this money can be credited before the Kharif and Rabi planting seasons. The e-wallet may be used only for the purchase of fertilizer. The government can maintain a stock of basic fertilizers including urea, DAP, to ensure no untold price rise in a decontrol scenario. So basically, this is what the writer wants to suggest, that they can have the e-wallet. Now e-wallet is going to decide that how much of the fertilizers is bought by the farmer. So basically we can link e-wallet with the soil health card so that the farmer buys as much nutrient as is needed by the soil in the field. So this is what the writer has to suggest. Let's move on to the next news. The next news of the day is about Ajinomoto Japanese seasoning. Now what has happened, there was a film that was supposed to be released by the name Ajinomoto. However, there was a Japanese-based seasoning manufacturer who had claimed the infringement of the registered trademark Ajinomoto. So therefore, the Delhi High Court halted the release of the film. Now, what is this Ajinomoto basically? See, in 1908, Kikune Ikeda was a chemistry professor at the university in Japan. He reached out to a pharmaceutical firm, and this pharmaceutical helped commercialize the food additive that he had been researching. So now what happened? The reason for the distinctive flavor of kelp, which is an algae. So he was trying to figure out the distinctive flavor of the kelp, and he was doing research on this. And this company by the name Suzuki Pharmaceutical, it basically helped the professor commercialize a food additive. Now the story, it goes like this, that while there was he was having a bowl of tofu in a broth that was made from the kelp, and remember he was working on the kelp. Now he became convinced that there was another basic taste different from sweet, salty, sour and bitter. He called it as umami. So we know four types of taste. Salty, sour, bitter and of course sweet. But there was another type of taste that he named umami. That he identified it was coming from kelp. It was coming from the kelp. The broth in which the tofu was there, the kelp was used to make the broth for the tofu, and he called that taste as umami. Now, playing on the Japanese word for delicious. So umami means delicious in Japanese. So Ikeda study led him to glutamate, which was one of the common amino acid that is found in the food and in the human body. Now, with a dash of sodium, it became MSG, that is monosodium glutamate, which was which was, a compound with culinary promises. Now, if you remember, if you take Chinese food, if we have Japanese food, they used to add MSG. It's a kind of a salt. It is added to add that umami flavor. So if you go to have this chow mein, this chow mein. So these days MSG was, of course, it was banned for some reasons. However, some people, they may still use MSG, but still MSG was not, it was found out to have some bad health effects. Therefore, the use of MSG was slowly started to decline. Now, in less than a year, this patent office gave approval to the Ajinomoto, which was basically a seasoning that was made by breaking down wheat with hydrochloric acid, and therefore the name literally means the quintessence of flavor, which was chosen by the Suzuki pharmaceutical. But the production process would corrode the vessels. But the production process would corrode the vessels because of the hydrochloric acids. So Suzuki marketing couldn't cloud the fact that Ajinomoto, it was expensive. Finding very little success amongst the restaurant, the company began to target the homemakers. But Japanese women who would regard frugality as a necessary virtue, they would find it difficult to regard Ajinomoto as necessary for their kitchens. So they were also not interested in finding out what this Ajinomoto would do with respect to their food taste and etc. etc. So slowly, then, Ajinomoto, the Japanese immigrants took Ajinomoto to Hawaii, and the Chinese diaspora also took it to North America. In Cook at Home in Chinese, published that was in the year 1938, Henry Law, often credited for inventing the egg roll, listed as one of the 5 Chinese staple one needed to start cooking Chinese in an American kitchen. So that's how the MSG, the brand of this monosodium glutamate, is slowly started to become popular. So basically, Ajinomoto is nothing but it's a Japanese seasoning. Right, let's move on to the next news. District as export hub. Now, one district, one product initiative, it started to has emerged and it has become operational with DEH initiative. Now, DEH is an initiative of the DGFT, which is Director General for the Foreign Trade, and the Department of Commerce, with Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, DPIIT, as a major stakeholder. Now, what happens under this initiative? The products, these clusters are formed. One district is taken, and one particular product from that district is then taken to, and it is then made to become global. All the loopholes and all the structural strains are then identified, and their efforts are put to get rid of those structural strains, so as to bring that cluster at a global level. So global for local, or local for global, like that. So basically, action plans are being prepared to identify the products and services for the overseas markets. There are plans to improve the supply chains, the market accessibility, and hand-holding support would be given to the exports, which are the products for which the products are then identified. And there will be state promotion committee and the district promotion committee, and it has been constituted in all 36 states and union territories. Initially, one district, one product was an initiative of the Uttar Pradesh government. So the central government has initiated this one district, one product in all states, and this is a basically transformational step towards realizing the potential of a district, fueling the economic growth, generating employment and rural entrepreneurship to realize the goal of Atmanirbhar Bharat. And ODOP has been identified for the prestigious Prime Minister's Award for Excellence in Public Administration in Holistic Development in April 2022. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching Tarun IAS. I hope you understood today's current affairs.